The three professional teams that are playing in Philadelphia right now are all poised for big years. The Phillies have an opportunity at hand to really do some damage. The Union, again, sitting at the top of the Eastern Conference standings. The Eagles, coming off their Super Bowl win, should be quite good once again. They got a chance to beat the Chiefs again for the second time in 3 games this weekend coming up. So I think September and October here in Philadelphia and here at PHLY are going to be a lot of fun. And one of the reasons that I say that is because I'm starting to get that feeling in my gut. I'm starting to get that feeling in my chest that, like, this could be a special September and a special October. This time last year, things were really bleak, whether you wanted to admit it or not. And I think I was in camp delusion. I was in camp denial because their record told you that they were still a good team. The fact that they were holding serve enough in the NL East to win the division told you that they were still a good team. But your eyeballs told you that they weren't playing very good baseball right now. In the second half of the season last year, the Phillies were a .500 team. They were 33-33. Their run differential was a +3. It felt like they were leaking oil. Even if they would win 2 or 3 or 4 in a row, they entered August 5 up in the East. They left August 6 up in the East. You know, they did enough to hold serve, but they weren't that team that was stretching the lead in the division as the months progressed. They entered September up 6 in the East. They left September up 6 in the East. They were playing, I guess, fine enough to do what they needed to do. But they ended up having to play in. They ended up not having to play in the wild card round because they were the 2 seed. The 2 seed, yeah, they were the 2 seed. But they ended up having to play a Mets team that got hot at the right time, used a go-ahead late inning heroic home run from Pete Alonso off of Devin Williams to beat the Brewers, and pretty quickly dispatched the Phillies in 4 games. Phillies won that 1 game on walk-off fashion. The Nick Castellanos game, it was fun. But other than that, the 4 games were not a whole lot of fun. Kyle Schwarber hit a leadoff home run in Game 1 of the NLDS, and they didn't score another run. Zach Wheeler was the hard luck loser, even though he was excellent in that game. This year feels a whole heck of a lot different. In the second half, they're playing sizably better baseball. They're 13 games over .500 since the All-Star break. Their run differential, +61. They've won 10 out of their last 13 games. They're 8-2 in September. They have not only extended the lead in the National League East by sweeping out the Mets to 10 games, but over the last couple of weeks have swept out the Mets, the Rangers, the Mariners, and won a series against the Brewers. And really the only stumble was the sweep at the hands of the Mets at Citi Field, which feels like a lifetime ago, and the final 2 games of the Orioles, or the final game of the Orioles series and the first 2 games of the Reds series. I'm trying to put that in. Whatever it was, it felt like there was a 3-game stretch where they weren't playing very good baseball against those 2 teams. But the reality is, this is a substantially different feel heading into the middle portion of September and the final 15 games. Last year, their trade deadline acquisitions. I thought Carlos Estevez numerically was good, but come postseason time, ends up serving up the grand slam to Francisco Lindor. That's going to be his lasting image in Philadelphia, even though his stats tell you he was a good acquisition and was the right one at the time because they needed another back-end bullpen guy, and they went out and got one of the best ones available. Austin Hayes, wildly underwhelming, not entirely his fault. Can't do anything about the fact that he had a kidney infection that I think really sapped him of not only his power, but a lot of energy as well. It took him a lot of effort and energy just to get back on the baseball field, and I applaud him for doing so, but he was not the guy that the Phillies were looking for statistically when they acquired him from the Orioles. This year, the trade deadline acquisitions, both via trade and via free agency, all 3 of the guys that they have acquired around that time frame have been incredible components to the Phillies' success in the month of September. Outside of losing Zach Wheeler, the Phillies are relatively healthy. Trey Turner in the interim, of course, with the hamstring injury. We'll see what happens when he comes back. Edmundo Sosa is going to hold down the fort at short. But they are relatively healthy outside of losing Zach Wheeler. I still trust Christopher Sanchez and Ranger Suarez and Jesus Luzardo heading into the postseason. I feel really good about those three guys, which is why I feel really good about getting at least out of the NLDS. But you think about the three acquisitions that the Phillies have made. Harrison Bader, Jhoan Duran, David Robertson. Harrison Bader, since joining the team, we have talked extensively about. He's now hitting .339. He's slashing .339, .403, .539, .942. He has 39 hits since joining the team, including 14 extra base hits. He's driven in 14 runs. You know the defense is going to be elite. You know he's going to be a good base runner. But the offensive productivity that he has put together since joining the team has been beyond my wildest expectations. Jhoan Duran, who I had wild expectations for the most part, has lived up to those expectations. He's pitched 17 times. He has 13 saves, which is crazy to think about how it feels like he's been here 2 weeks, but the reality is he's been here over a month and a half. He has 13 saves, a 1.23 ERA. He has 20 strikeouts in those 17 appearances and a .818 whip. David Robertson, meanwhile, who they signed for just money, who hadn't pitched all year, who looks fresh, probably fresher than we've seen him in quite some time. Had a really good year in Texas last year, but because of the fact that he didn't pitch in April, May, June, and into July, he looks as fresh as he possibly could. He's appeared 14 times. He's got a 2.84 ERA and has struck out 18 in those 14 appearances. He himself has just a 1.184 whip. When you look around the landscape of the National League, specifically when you look at the New York Mets, the Mets went out and acquired Cedric Mullins. He's hitting below 200. The Mets went out and acquired Ryan Helsley. He's been dreadful since they've acquired him. The Phillies could have done a lot of different things, and in trade deadlines past, they've done those things. Every guy that they have acquired at and around the trade deadline has made market improvements to this team. And those three guys, paired with the fact that before the injury, Trey Turner was having a Phillies career year, paired with the fact that the starting rotation, even without Zach Wheeler, was feeling really, really good, paired with the fact that you now have a bullpen that has structure in place and has roles that you feel really, really good about. I have this gut feeling in my stomach. It's in my head. It's in my chest. It's in my heart. And it's not one that I feel good about because I'm a Phillies fan. I think it's one that I feel good about objectively. I watched the John Boy Media video the other day that said the Phillies are the best team heading into the postseason. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to finish with the best record. Still think the Brewers have a pretty good chance to be the 1 seed. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Phillies are going to have the number 1 postseason odds to win the World Series. I still think that's going to end up going to a team like the Dodgers just because they're the Dodgers. But I feel really, really good with the final 15 games of the regular season heading into the postseason, and probably feel as best as I have all season long that the Phillies can win the World Series. There is no doubt in my mind this team is a World Series contender, and there is no question in my mind that this team could be having a parade down Broad Street. And I've felt pretty good about that all season long, with the highs and the lows, and the highs being them as a World Series contender. I think the floor has started to raise. Now, I don't know if Harrison Bader hits .330 for the rest of the year. I don't know if Brandon Marsh stays as hot as he has been. I don't know if Max Kepler continues to swing a hot bat. I don't know how Trey Turner performs when he gets back. But I know a lot. And I don't mean I know a lot, meaning I'm smart. I mean, I know a lot. There are constants with this team right now that give me a lot to believe in. That give me a lot to believe in when I look around the rest of the National League, that this team is as good or better than every team in the National League. When you look externally, you start to feel really good about the fact that the Phillies are healthy. When you look externally, you start to feel really good about the fact that the Phillies have made a lot of the right moves, seemingly, at the trade deadline. I pinpointed a couple of teams so far. 4 teams that I think are still playoff caliber teams, 3 of which are definitively playoff caliber team. The 4th, of course, is the Mets. Let's start with the Mets because we alluded to it. They're free falling since being swept by the Phillies, and they're free falling really since the start of the second half. They have the third or fourth worst record since the All-Star break in all of baseball. Ryan Helsley, as we mentioned, has been a mess. Cedric Mullins, I think at this point, is cooked. I am very happy they went out and got Harrison Bader as opposed to Cedric Mullins because Bader has performed and Mullins has not. I don't know if the Mets make the postseason. The Reds might catch them at the end. But even if they do, I don't feel good about their chances. This is not the miracle Mets, the magic Mets that we saw a season ago. This is an average baseball team right now. They have a lot of talent, don't get me wrong. Juan Soto's elite. Pete Alonso is elite. Francisco Lindor is elite. But they're playing like an average baseball team right now. How about the Chicago Cubs? We know that offense is clicking, but Kyle Tucker is banged up. Mike Soroka has pitched just once since being acquired. Who knows how long he's going to be out for? Daniel Palencia is on the IL with a shoulder strain. The recurring theme that I'm about to get into is that the Phillies are healthy and a lot of these other teams are starting to get some cracks in the foundation. The Dodgers have been dealing with injuries all season long. Will Smith hurt his hand recently. He's going to be fine, but he's another banged up player. I wrote in my notes, WTF happened to Mookie Betts for most of this year. Now, I will say this. He's coming out of like a season-long slump. He's hitting .333 in the last 28 days. I think he's finally come out of it. He's fine. But what happened with Mookie Betts for a majority of the year? The Dodgers have dealt with a slew of injuries all season long. To Roki Sasaki, to Yoshinobu Yamamoto, to Tyler Glasnow. Their pitching staff has been riddled with injuries. The guys that they signed, like Kirby Yates and Tanner Scott, have not been particularly good. They have been piecing things together. They look human. The team that we thought were the superheroes of the league have looked really, really human. And then the Milwaukee Brewers, they're still really good. But their bullpen's taken a couple of sizable hits recently. Shelby Miller's done for the year. He has a UCL strain. He may not pitch at all next year. Trevor McGill and Nick Mears, they're probably going to be back soon. But how effective are they going to be? I don't know the answer to that question. It's a really good bullpen that has seen a lot of injuries start to mount up over the last couple of weeks. This Phillies team, man, you still have to do it in October. And anything can happen over 5 days or 7 days in 5 games. But if you asked me 3-4 weeks ago, how do I feel about the Phillies? I would have told you I feel good. If you ask me now, how do I feel about the Phillies? I feel chesty. I feel great. I feel like this team has a legitimate chance to not only do some damage in the postseason, to not only get to the World Series, but I think this team has a legitimate chance to win the World Series. Compared to last year, my feeling is on the absolute opposite end of the pendulum swing. I feel great heading into the final 15 games. Barring injuries, this team is going to make some noise in the postseason.